unsolved mysteries, unique history, unanswered science, baffling true crime, cryptids, the strange and unusual can all be found here. So, come out of the rain and follow us across the creaking floor, through the secret passage, into the realm behind the bookcase.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Got Aaron over there. This is our flagship podcast, so this is probably going to be completely horrible.
Hey,
But
we're doing it.
um, starting now.
Anyway, well, we're glad everybody is joining us for our maiden voyage behind the bookcase.
Behind the
Um,
bookcase. If you've heard our intro, the idea of this podcast is to do things that are fun to talk about, that don't have anything to do with politics, that are interesting, from true crime to strange and unnatural science. Um, Maybe yes, sometimes cryptids and things that are weird, but also they might find life on Mars and something very much more mainstream.
yeah.
But I'm pretty sure at some point there will be talk of aliens. At
All kinds of things.
least when I'm writing the show.
I'm a big true crime and mystery buff. I love anything that's unsolved. Just going over trying to figure out, the pieces of the puzzle and um, looking at the evidence and
We both like puzzles. I'd say anything that's a true mystery
yeah, yeah,
that's interesting. That
exactly.
maybe has, and what we'll try to do towards the end of each episode or series, I think this first one's going to be a 4-part series. I'll get to that in just a minute. But what we'll do when we get to the end of a subject matter, we'll try and go over everything from the zany conspiracy theory ideas to what the police think on like a murder mystery case. Um, Teaser coming up. I think we're going to do a podcast on the Dutch Girls of Panama, and that's a really interesting one that has me baffled that the police just didn't do their job at all.
There's so
So
many weird things with that. Like that one really gets to me. So, but we won't go too much into that.
yeah, but so we'll try to wrap up and say, what the police think, what some normal mainstream theories are, and then, could it be aliens? So we'll
B's always going to come back to could it be aliens? But we're excited to discuss lots of topics, and the main thing is we are pulling them all from pop culture. So TV shows, books, movies, news articles, other media. Everything that we discuss is going to have a background in something that we've
something that came
yeah,
from or is pop culture or
yeah,
imitating life, life imitating art.
yeah. So you can go watch it or read it or experience it the way that we found it. So,
So sometimes we might tie in a book review, sometimes we might have a movie suggestion or a movie review or where we saw this first. Speaking of which, the first episode here is going to be on the Cecil Hotel and Elisa Lam. There is currently a Netflix series called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. It's on Netflix right now. I think last week it was number 1 or number 2, I want to say, in the nation, and this week it's still holding at number 5. So it's a good time to maybe get in and jump in and talk about this.
yeah.
I don't know about you, but the first time I saw anything about Elisa Lam, it was basically YouTube videos, and it had to do with this very strange elevator scene footage. I know you've seen it. I don't know if we saw it together, but what was the first time? Is that the first time you heard about this case?
Yeah, I was trying to remember if I actually saw it in the news or if it was something that we just saw a video about. But I can't
Yeah,
really
it's hard to
remember.
recall.
But literally, that's the thing that sticks out is that creepy video, and that's probably what everybody really remembers when you hear about that. But the second thing is when I realized where it was. that also intrigued me because
Yes, no spoilers, because
yes.
I know you did a little bit of a deeper dive on that subject. And if you're new to this subject, I think a lot of you that are probably finding this video know something about it, and hopefully we're going to add something to your experience of that. She's going into a hotel lobby elevator and pushing buttons on an elevator like she's drunk. Looks drunk. Pushes all the buttons like a 4-year-old would do, right? Just all the way down.
Yeah, she's crouching, she's making weird motions with her hands.
The
Um,
elevator door doesn't ever close.
yeah.
But the first thing I really want to do is talk about the hotel itself. We can get into Elisa, and there's many other strange, odd events. Everything from rumors that the Black Dahlia had something to do with this hotel to Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez,
Mhm.
the Night Stalker,
Yeah.
actually staying there. Which, after you say what you're about to say, I can completely see that one and see
Oh, yeah.
why.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the hotel a little bit. And what did you learn about the Cecil Hotel?
Well, just to go through some basic history of the not only the hotel, but the actual area where this is. So we're on the East Coast, but this is directly in the middle of LA. And in the early around 1919, that area of LA was booming. Business was moving in. Lots of comings and goings, and the railway station was just a few blocks down from the area where the hotel was built. Um,
And I think that's what helped its development is it was off the railway,
I
and
think,
that's the area of LA that was being built up at the time off of that sort of transit system
yeah, I
coming
think
through
they
there.
both worked off of each other. So,
Yeah.
and the reason the original men that decided to build the hotel was they knew that that traffic was coming in and out, and they wanted to give them a place to stay. The hotel opened in 1924. It has always had a lot of rooms. It has 700 rooms, but
Wow.
they have always been a mixture of regular rooms, with your own bathroom like you would think of with a hotel room. And then there are floors where the rooms are communal with communal bathrooms on the same floor. So obviously those
Like more of a hostile
yeah,
situation.
but for travelers just wanting a kind of a less expensive stay, they could stay with, other people they didn't know. Just not quite all the amenities, and they would be able to stay in there.
So back at this time frame, not to jump forward in time, but back at this time, who stayed at this hotel?
So this was a lot of the business travelers mainly. So it was people coming in from the train. They were doing business in the city. They might have been, building other buildings, all kinds of trade that was going on then. And it was actually a very nice hotel. It was very well appointed. The lobby is beautiful. It's still beautiful to this day, which is kind of interesting.
Well,
Well,
that's kind of an odd thing about it, isn't it?
yeah.
So, one of the things that is, I think, an overarching metaphor of this building is if you look at it from the street view, it looks nice. If you walk into the lobby, it looks nice. If you turn the corner going to the right and then take a left, so you're looking at the right hand side of the building, it looks like something else. It looks like 3 buildings back to back behind each other with breezeways in between and looks run down as hell. You would never know that that was the Cecil looking at it from the street view. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of a metaphor for this building. It has this beautiful facade with just this horrific stuff behind it and
Yeah, and
within
it
it.
wasn't changed the style of the building I thought was a little bit odd anyway. It was built like that where it is basically 3 tall, skinny buildings that are put together into a block. And we'll show you a picture here in a minute so that you can kind of get an idea. But also, being in graphic design like I am, I'm mesmerized by the difference also in the signage. So the front has kind of a very nice, uh, iconic Cecil Hotel sign on the front, and then you go to the side, and there's a painted sign with saying that there are 700 rooms for rent, and it has
Monthly rates, and that's painted over to say daily rates. So
yeah,
now
and
you know what you're getting into.
yeah, and they didn't even
It
bother to center it or just paint over the whole thing. They still use the LY
it's
from the
kind of
old one.
old Hollywood meets dirty, rundown, dark Hollywood, and it's kind of slammed into the same building.
Yeah, it's so wild, but I mean, it really does speak a lot to the story of the building, just looking at the building. But just to jump back into the history,
I think it was the Great Depression that brought an end to things for that
exactly.
era,
Well,
right?
it actually the Great Depression put an end to kind of the boom that was going on around there. The hotel actually stayed fairly luxurious until the 1940s, and then the decades after that it just went
One thing after the
really
other.
bad. Yeah. And so as time went on, you know, prostitutes,
Well, let's go ahead and
drugs.
get into that. Let's jump into the 1970s. Tell us what it was like by the 70s,
Well,
which was a lovely decade to begin with.
yeah. Well, a lot of crime was going on in that area. There was drugs, there was prostitutes, there was a lot of homelessness. Even to this day, that area is now overrun with a homeless population. But back in that time, it had become such a problem that they actually um, kind of created a containment area for the homeless. So they
Well, they
actually
did. It's Skid Row.
well, Skid Row is actually a part of town that has now become synonymous with a slum. But
And this
it's
is something I did not know, folks. This is Erin doing her research. Um, and maybe it's because we're East Coasters, but you know, I knew Skid Row was an area in Los Angeles, and it's also kind of a metaphor for being down and out. You're on Skid Row or on the skids. I think
Mhm.
everybody's heard, but I did not know that it's incorporated.
Yeah,
It's
it's literally a town. It has a representative on the city council. Um,
half of you right now are going to be like, you idiots,
yeah,
you East
exactly.
Coasters.
I really
But
didn't
we
know.
honestly did
I
not
just
know
kind
this.
of thought it was like that's what they called it. I just thought that's what they called the homeless population was Skid Row.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was actually a district of LA, but it is. So for other people that didn't know that, now you know, and for other people that are laughing at us, that's okay.
That's okay.
But anyway, so it kind of became a containment area for the homeless, and the city did, put in missions and uh, treatment places and
Soup
other
kitchens and
yeah places.
shelters. But that's why it became a containment unit. They put those things there to keep the homeless there. And while it was sort of a refuge, if you will, randomly they would just go in there and clean house and kick them all out.
Yeah, or just go on huge raids where they just rounded everybody up and knew that there was obviously bad stuff going on or
My guess
illegal
is that was
things.
around the
Yeah.
time taxes were due or there was an election.
Yeah, or they needed to clean up for some visitor
Olympics.
or something.
Yeah,
Anyway, so I mean,
1984 Olympics.
going in, from between the 70s and the 80s, one thing that the show I learned from the show, they talked to a cop and the cop was like, "Yeah, when I worked that beat back in the 80s, I got called out no less than 1 to 3 times per day
A day.
to the Cecil Hotel alone." And
Yeah, and another thing about, I guess, just the management. And this person is introduced on the show. Her name is Amy Price. She was a GM there, general manager from 2007 to 2017. And she literally, on public record, just called it a zoo. And I think there was 50 employees back there at the time. She's called it everything from a zoo to the Titanic. So There's the general manager that worked there for 10 years, and her opinion. Um, and there is a rumor, this is not in the show, but this is something that you got in your research. But there is rumors and insinuations, hints, and accusations that she had edited the footage that we saw. So we'll talk about that when we talk about the footage.
Yeah.
But she denies it.
Well, and the thing is that we're watching this show and we didn't skip ahead. So we're literally talking about the first episode now, and I don't know what else comes out, so I'm going to hold my reservation on that.
We do know the rest of the story, but
Yeah.
not as maybe on a granular level or as this show is going to go into it, and we'll add
Yeah.
sort of what we know
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, we don't want to jump around here. But
Um
there's rumors that maybe she edited that footage. A couple other things I just wanted to talk about, and then let's kind of jump into Elisa. Is it Eliza? Elisa. I think it's Elisa Lam. Um, but the guests of this hotel currently, or let's say up until let's say the mid aughts, it was basically a place that you could rent weekly, nightly, maybe even monthly, or it was kind of a on the interwebs. It was sort of a honey trap for international tourists staying in downtown LA with fares as low as $85 a night. So it caught a lot of international travelers, and I think international travelers were something like 80% of its bookings.
yeah. I
So it
mean, I
really
really
caught that
feel like
market
it was just people not doing
enough
enough
research.
research, and let this be a lesson to all of you out there.
Yeah,
If
or
you're
when we
traveling
go somewhere,
somewhere,
when you
yeah.
travel, go on Google Earth, look at the street, do some research about the area.
Yeah, look at
Do
the
not
crime
stay at the
rates
Cecil
maybe.
Hotel.
But yeah, I mean, I think there I thought that was an interesting part on the show too. They actually interviewed a couple very, nice down to earth couple from the UK that were they said that they had just signed up for a travel package to go to LA, and in the travel package it was a really good deal. So they weren't expecting the lap of luxury, but it did not know what they were getting into because it didn't list the hotel that they were going to be staying at. And they ended up staying there the same week or the next week after um the that Elisa Lamb went
Oh,
missing.
that's right.
Yeah.
It was
And
right.
so they
It was
heard of
around this
it
time.
after they were staying there, and they were kinda stuck staying there, and
I
they
remember
also
now.
realized that, yeah, that they went, to walk around downtown, and there's homeless people everywhere, and
And on the phone pole, there's still the missing notices
yeah, because
for
they
Elisa
hadn't
on
found
the
her yet.
telephone poles.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
how
crazy. I
crazy.
forgot about that. That's a
How
great point.
yeah,
That's a
um,
great point. Okay, so that's the hotel. Pretty much now, um, it, it may have gone through a name change, but let's say it's basically the same place.
yeah,
It's what we're talking about now. It got stuck in 1986, and even if you go to this day, it's still going to look like maybe not a good part of 1986, but it's going to look like 1986, and it's in the middle of Skid Row in downtown LA.
yeah,
But let's go ahead and jump forward and talk about Lisa for a little bit here. So she was said international traveler, kind of. I think she was a first generation American. I think her
Canadian, she's Canadian.
Canadian. Her father was from Hong Kong, though, I believe. And the mother, I forget where the mother was from. So first generation Canadian, that's correct. And then she was just wanting to go out and about. She was 21 years old at the time and wanted to go see the bright city, see the lights of LA, and was very. I wasn't aware of this until the show and doing a little more research, but and this is kind of more to the point. The more you know about her, the more you realize that she was very naive, I would say, as far as travel, as far as really anything, to the point where she came across to me as someone that was very, I guess, what's the word, sheltered. She's 21 years old, a grown adult, and she had to ask her parents permission to travel for the first time.
Yeah, and they gave her permission to travel, and I don't know, it might be just their family dynamic too,
Yeah.
but she was very heavily on social media. She used it basically as a diary, which is interesting because you can read a lot about what she was posting before she went. She was posting during the time she was there when she, started her trip, and it basically read like a diary. And to me, that's a little bit interesting as far as the mystery of what happened to her, because she was kind of laying it all out on the line, and you don't know who is reading those things and what they're going to do with that information.
I think that speaks a little bit to the naivete because we all do it now. We all have social media and we're all aware of, using VPNs and sort of what you say and don't say online. But this was very early on with social media. And I think that's a little bit, combine the fact that she's 21, she's going out to clubs, wanting to know where the clubs are, but yet was so sheltered, had to ask her parents for permission, yet she's online basically blogging daily about where she is, what she's doing. Even when she was in the hotel, she was kind of blogging or vlogging. I forget which one. Maybe we can come back to that later. But basically, just telling everyone what she was doing, where she was, what she's going to do that evening. And in one of the posts, I remember her basically online stating she wouldn't mind meeting a stranger, but she's very shy and awkward with dating, but she would like to meet a stranger and have a relationship. So it's that kind of just vulnerability and putting it out there that I think may be a part of the puzzle of
Well, she
what's
also
happening.
hauntingly said, I like to meet strangers, but I always get in trouble because I don't know when to shut my mouth, basically. Or I always say the wrong thing and don't know when to stop talking.
She seemed very socially
Yeah,
awkward.
and so, like, that was an odd thing for her to write, and I would be interested to know what kinds of things had happened to her before where she had that, her opinion of her own self.
Now, I know she was supposed to stay in room 506 for 4 days, and it wasn't until the fourth day that basically they realized something was up because she didn't check out on time. Um, and I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly, that it wasn't until later in the day that the cops were called because um, they
Well,
went up there and the wallet closed
it's
and all of
not
her.
that, no, the family, because she was so close with her family and they had let her go on this trip, she was checking in with them regularly. So,
Right, and the
she
parents called.
missed the check, so the hotel. So we find out a little bit later that the parents called and were trying to find her and saying that she didn't do her daily check-in, and the hotel was like, "Oh yeah, she missed her checkout time," and so we just went up there and scooped up all of her stuff, and we have it in the back room.
Now that struck you as very odd. However, I've worked in hotels and I've stayed in enough hotels to know that let's say 11 o'clock comes around 11:30, you miss your checkout time. Someone calls about a 21-year-old, and let's be honest, grown ass adult, basically. And we're not blaming this on her, obviously, or anything like that. But from a hotel perspective, you call and say an adult hasn't called mom and dad in a couple of days, and her stuff's still there on the day she's supposed to check out. Well, they can charge you a couple $100, and late checkout, you get your stuff at 5 o'clock, or they don't sell the room, they charge you the room the next day. So it doesn't strike me as entirely suspicious that they didn't call the cops until later that evening. But I think the cops did come that evening or that afternoon, later
Well,
that afternoon.
the hotel had nothing to do with the cops. The cops came to the hotel and they were like, "Oh yeah, she didn't check out on time, so we just cleared her stuff out." They didn't report it to the cops, and that's what I found so weird.
So the cops
It's
came
like
on behest of the parents
the
calling.
yes,
Yeah.
the cop came because the parents called, and when they went to investigate to do a welfare check, basically, The hotel was like, "Oh, yeah, we haven't seen her, and we just put all of her stuff," and it was literally all of her stuff, like, her clothes, her suitcase, her phone, her computer that she was blogging on all the time, like, literally
Wallet
everything.
with the money in
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
wallet, everything, like, everything was in there. And I thought that was weird because I would assume if I was a hotel, if I were going to check the room, no, she didn't check out, I would just assume, like, oh, all of her stuff is still here. She's going to be coming back. We're going to charge her for another night or charge her for a late checkout. I don't think I would just gather her stuff up and wonder if she's coming back and put it in the lost and found. I mean, the hotel manager even said it, like, "Oh, people leave stuff all the time." And I can see, like, leaving a pair of
Well, I think
shoes.
we did a pretty good setup of what this hotel is all about.
Yeah,
It's a different place.
true. I mean, who knows what gets left there.
It gets
I
taken to the
get that.
lost and found, and if somebody doesn't come get their stuff in a week, then they found it, it's theirs, and some employee probably behind the counter
Yeah,
might have been
gets
a
a
little bit
laptop
richer
or
with,
whatever.
the
Yeah.
money that was in that wallet, maybe that kind of a place. But one thing that
Not that we're accusing anybody of that, but
no,
they
no,
did
no,
have
we're
all of
not
her stuff
accusing
actually
anybody.
in a
This is
bag.
this
And
is truly indeed a mystery, and I think everyone did their due diligence from what we can tell so far,
I
we'll
just
say.
felt like that was a miss from the hotel.
It
Like,
was a little bit of a miss from the hotel, but also someone's supposed to stay in the room for 4 days and they miss a checkout. That occurs probably thousands of times every day around the globe.
yeah.
So one thing that struck me is the detective said he had a bad feeling right off the bat, even though an employee or the maid or whoever cleaned the room reported the room being messy but not suspicious. So, meaning there was no sign of forced entry, there was no drug paraphernalia laying around, no one saw her leave. Um, so she might have been in the hotel
Yeah.
at that point. But I think in retrospect, by the end of this episode, we know why the detective had a bad feeling because A, it was the Cecil Hotel. And you've already told everybody they got 1 to 3 calls there a day. There was sometimes people macing each other in the halls and domestic disputes and even sometimes gunplay
Yeah.
that they were called to. So I think if you're a detective and you get called to the Cecil Hotel, you're gonna have, you know,
A bad
Han
feeling
Solo.
about
I
this.
got a bad feeling.
Yeah, so yeah, so when the cops first started the investigation there, they were kind of limited because they didn't have really they obviously knew she was missing, but they didn't know any kind of crime had happened. They thought maybe
Right.
she was lost in the city or obviously there's a ton of different scenarios that could have played out. So they did some searching in the hotel at first, but not anything major at that time because
Not extensively. Now they do that later.
yeah, because at first they could just go through wherever because a crime hadn't happened, so they couldn't start going into rooms and things like that, except for her room. But they went to all the common areas. They talked to the hotel staff. I think the hotel staff definitely remembered her. They were saying that she was outgoing and very nice, and they did remember seeing her around. I think one of the stories that I think that you found the most interesting was what one of the employees said about the night that she or the day that she had gone missing. That
Well, I do know that the night of the disappearance, she was in an area that guests aren't supposed to be in.
yeah,
And they don't mention what part of the hotel that is. So we don't know if that was maybe it was employees only, but was it a banquet hall on the ground floor or a ground floor restaurant that was closed, or was it a dumpster area
or a
out back?
locker room, or yeah. I mean,
We don't know.
I want to know that fact so bad.
But the employee did say one of the last people to ever see her alive basically said that she was walking towards that elevator bank. And one of the things I did notice watching that video of her in the elevator is we can't we we're sort of in dispute. Is she wearing a skirt or shorts or culottes? but it's something cut off above the knee, and flip flops. Okay, this is LA, sure. Um, but there's a couple of things. One, she was staying on room 504 or 506, so on floor 5, and there wasn't CCTV cameras on every floor. And we do know that the floor that she was staying on did not have CCTV cameras. So that footage is not
On the floor she was
on the floor that
staying.
she's staying on. So she was in flip flops, walking towards the elevator bank, and in a area that she wasn't supposed to be in, as called out by an employee, but not chastised. Just like, hey, you can't be here. Please leave.
Yeah.
She's walking towards the elevator bank. So we think, or my suspicion is, this CCTV, or the elevator footage rather, is from the ground floor. I'm just going to go with that for now.
Well, I don't think it's on the ground floor. It's on a no,
You don't,
it's on
but I
another
think it may be.
it's on another level because you can kind of see the hallway of door, like other rooms. It doesn't look like a lobby
Yeah, but
area.
there's ground floor rooms, I believe.
Yeah.
So anyway, we can circle back to that. But um, the other thing is she was wearing flip flops, and she was staying on a floor that was more hostel like. It had the communal bathrooms.
Yeah. Oh, and
So
it
that's
was
why I was saying she could be wearing flip flops because she went to the bathroom, and no one wants to walk into a communal bathroom barefooted.
yeah.
But it wasn't her floor. We know that because the CCTV footage is there. But then you don't think it's the ground floor either, even though an employee saw her walking towards the elevator bank. So sometime between her going towards the elevator bank and her getting to
But
past, or
I don't
going
think
up
the
to the fifth
timeline.
floor, something happened.
No, because the elevator footage I think is much later than the last person that saw her going
It may
to the
be. It
elevator.
may be.
So if you look at that timeline, I don't think it had anything to do with each other.
Is
But
that a timeline element? You say no. You
yeah,
don't think
I
it's a
mean, I think we
timeline.
have to get a little more detail on that, and that might
Okay.
be coming up in the next episode.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there's a time lapse there. So I think she was actually on the floor, but not on her floor, which is suspicious anyway. Like, why was she on somebody else, or why was she on a different floor? Was she
Well, she
visiting
was pushing
somebody?
all the buttons,
Yeah,
and if you've watched the footage now, we've inserted this into the video up to this point. You see how she's acting.
yeah,
So she could have been on that thing for hours, honestly. However, we only have these 4 minutes that were caught that we know is her. Why is there only 4 minutes of footage if she was playing around on this thing for any period of time? That's
yeah,
why I'm kind of leaning more towards there being a timeline
yeah.
between that last employee seeing her and that footage. But that's probably the only reason, and that's probably the flimsiest of reasons. But nevertheless,
Well, I'm curious as to what area she was in. I really wish we had that detail because
we might.
uh yeah,
So
we don't know. We're going to be
maybe
watching
that's a
with
cliffhanger.
all of you guys
Be
too.
watching
So
with you.
um but yeah, so maybe we'll find out, but cuz of course my mind starts spinning on all the what ifs, and I was thinking, well, if she was being friendly with hotel employees, then maybe she was in an area where she was trying to find an employee she had met before or something like that. Maybe she was attracted to somebody there, or
Oh,
they
that's not
prop
a bad theory. We know
yeah.
she was. You said a Blogspot. Was that the
Yeah.
social media
Yeah.
she was on all the time? And
Yeah.
we know she was looking to date, and maybe she met the cute guy or girl or whatever in the hotel,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why she was in that area of the hotel. She was trying to
Yeah,
go
maybe it
find
was a
them,
waiter or something like
right?
that. And so she was just in an area thinking that if she went in an employee area, then she would see this person.
Right.
And that would be automatically a person of suspicion if there was some a tie to an actual employee. But
Right.
they have not given us that information, so I am just making that up. But but
It's a good theory. It's a good theory.
I mean, it would be a lead anyway if
Now we do know up the day before this footage and all these events occurred, she went around town, and they do have CCTV footage of her in this other. She went to a bookstore
yeah.
on the same street, and eerily enough, it was called The Last bookstore.
Yeah. Maybe we should have called our podcast that. But yeah,
So there's synchronicity. She went to a bookstore called the Last Bookstore.
yeah.
Um,
That was the last kind of place I think that her credit card was used, and that's
I
why they
think so.
went there. And they said there again, another employee there remembered her. And I think she had bought kind of an expensive book, like a nice hard bound.
We don't know what she bought though.
They said that it was a nice book and that she was worried about it being heavy to carry around and to
Is that
travel
one thing
with.
she left at the hotel?
I don't know. I don't know that they said that, but that was just what the bookstore said. So
Okay.
maybe it was the books in her possessions.
Now,
Uh,
let's jump gears, and we're getting towards the end of this first segment here, but the cops do eventually see this as a case, a person of interest, a case of interest. This is a missing person.
well, how they get to that conclusion is that they actually they finally got the CCTV footage from the hotel, and two of the main policemen on the case realize after going through it that they see her coming in and they never see her leave on any of the cameras.
Right.
So that is what
Now,
really
not just on the
triggered
missing floors, but neither her, well, not her floor, but coming down from
any of the
any other
exits. The
any
exits
exit.
were on camera.
She did not exit where there was a camera, and there are cameras on all the exits
All the
on the
ground
floors.
floor exits where someone
Right.
would leave,
Right.
they did not see her leave. So they literally knew that she was probably somewhere in the hotel. So
Now,
that gave them the probable cause.
however, she's probably in the hotel, but it wouldn't be until 2 weeks into her disappearance that they suspect that homicide was likely. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So here's what we're dealing with. The first 48 hours is now the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
at the Cecil with Elisa, who goes into the hotel and seemingly never comes out. They did end up putting a ton of detectives. I want to say there was 18 to 20 detectives on this case working round the clock. They searched over 600 closets, rooms, and a couple of basements. The dogs, the tracking dogs, the scent dogs, ended up tracking her scent to a fire escape on the 5th floor and stopped.
Right. And interestingly, that window, they actually show a really good picture, and if we can find it, we'll put it up here in a second. But you can see where the fire escape meets the roof. Because at first I was like,
We had a discussion a
yeah,
little
I
bit
was like,
about this.
how would you get up onto the roof from that fire escape? Seems like it wouldn't, there would be some kind of door or something that wouldn't allow you to get up there, but it's literally a hole. Like there is a ladder and you can see a hole to the roof.
Yeah, so it's the type of hotel that goes straight up and then has a not a gable or a sconce, but what would you call it? A molding, I guess,
Yeah.
around it.
Mhm.
And there is a clear cut through from the fire escape going to the roof. So there is roof accessibility
Mhm.
to the fire escape from the highest floor. And there does not seem to be a metal door or anything that they would lock or solder shut or need employee access to get to. It's
Yeah.
wide open.
I
You
mean,
can
I
get to
don't
the
know
roof.
for sure because I don't know whether the footage that they were showing was like current at that
Right.
time or not, or if that was old footage. But from what they were showing, it looked like you could get directly up there. And even if there was a door added later, it still had access. So even if she had broken through it or whatever, there was a way to get up or down even. I mean,
And we know if you're new to this case, please don't jump forward because this is a true mystery. She eventually was found, but that did not solve the mystery. So I think we're going to leave it at that one for this time, folks. So here's what we have: strange behavior, weird hand motions and steps, pushing every button on the elevator, but the elevator door isn't closing until the fifth or sixth time she steps off of it. It closes. She opens it again and gets back in it. She's in a hotel in an area where she's not supposed to be, going towards an elevator bank. It never leaves the hotel, seemingly. All of her stuff is in the room. Parents call the cops, and it wasn't until 2 weeks later they basically turned that hotel upside down. And up to this point, Elisa Lam is not found. So I think that's going to wrap this episode.
Yeah.
You want to?
Yeah. Join us back again when we are going to discuss the second part of the series. And hopefully, we will find out some more to fill in some of these holes and um, get into some more of the mystery. We will definitely dig deep into the video and kind of break that down thoroughly for you. So join us back.
Yeah, if you're
Thanks.
listening to this as a podcast, or if you're listening to this on YouTube, especially if you're one of the first people to like or subscribe to this channel, we'll buy you a beer if we ever meet you. Thank you
Well,
so
it's
much.
much appreciated. Please do share and like and
subscribe and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and
And we're
let
going to
us
be
know.
doing things like this if, again, like mysterious, strange and unusual, true crime, maybe even sometimes cryptids and unnatural and natural sciences that baffle us. Please do subscribe. There'll be more like this. There'll be movie reviews, television recommendations.
Also,
anything that
please
ties
let
into
us
pop
know what you
culture.
would like to.
Let us know in the comments
You
what
know
you would
what
like.
you would like to know, and also
Like, subscribe, share. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.